All right, and welcome. This is Craig Nadeau from Bold Strong, and today I'm very excited to have good friend Amber Cress with us. Amber is a national level bikini athlete, and we met probably close to a year ago, and she's competed in the Alberta Open recently. She competed in the Toronto Pro Qualifier, and she's heading into the North American Pro Qualifier down in the U.S. And super excited to have you with us, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Craig. Yes.
Yeah. And realistically, we don't have like, we are going to talk about this today. This is more of a, hey, let's talk about a bunch of different things and see where we end up.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit about some of your competing career, and then we need to find out a little bit about you're doing some coaching, and you have a number of people, I won't say athletes. So let's first take a look at what you've done kind of in your career, as we call it, in the competing side. So
I started actually quite a while ago. 2012 was when I started training for my first competition. 2013 I competed for the first time, and that was with NPA Sport. So that is a natural federation. Fast forward quite a few years to 2021, and I stepped on stage again. This was with CPA. I competed in bikini. I placed second there.
Hold on a sec.
Yeah.
How big was that gap?
8 years.
8-year gap.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, we need to find out what happened.
Lots.
Wow.
So then after that, it was about a month in between, competed at my first national show, which was absolutely amazing. I got second place to somebody who did get their pro card. So,
oh, wow. Who was the one that got the pro card there?
Sarah Plowman.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there was 3 actually that were handed out. So she won the Masters, and then there was 2 others that were handed out in bikini.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all so right. 2 others out of the overall lineup.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good credentials.
Yeah.
So what happened in the 8 years? Was it 8?
It roughly? It was about 8 years. Yeah.
What happened in there?
So
well, here's why I ask is like I know there's people get into bodybuilding or whatever we're going to call it.
Yeah.
And they dive into it, and then it's like this wild obsession is like there's no you always hear of this bulking and cutting, but they're just kind of into, I'm going to do every single show from here till forever.
Yeah.
What happened? Well, how did it happen? I'm so fascinated.
So much life happened. So I wanted to do another show. My dad was actually sick with cancer at this point in time.
Yeah.
So not to take like a sad spin or anything on this, but it kind of came to the point where it was either continue on with bodybuilding and focus on myself and continue to grow and develop, or take the time away and focus on being with my family. So at that point in time, it kind of just made sense to take a step back and to focus on him. I was also trying to grow into a different category. So I was trying to do figure at that point in time. So I was trying to grow, put on a lot of muscle, and that just took a lot of dedication and a lot of time. So between family and going to school at that point in time, because I was still in university, it was just so many different life events that eventually it just kind of snowballed, and all of a sudden it was 8 years later, and now I'm just getting back into it.
Isn't that crazy, actually?
Yeah.
So, that's surprising. Like, I'm actually really shocked, actually, that you were able to do that, and it just seems so natural.
Yeah. I've always loved it, and I've always wanted to get back to it, so it's not like I fell out of love for the sport or I didn't like it anymore. So I was actually training to go into figure. So my boyfriend at the time, now fiance, he was actually coaching me and training me. Sorry, not coaching me, but training me. So I was doing all of my workouts with him.
If he's in the room, he would be coaching you.
So him and I were working out a lot together, and we're growing into that division. The division just ended up getting a lot bigger as I was getting bigger. And then I got to a point where I was just like, I don't know if it's me anymore. And then transitioned back into bikini, and then 2021, here we are competing again.
Wow. And so people don't know, and I think it gets fuzzy for men. For women, it goes bikini. Then
well, now we have wellness. So now it would be wellness, and then it would be figure, and then it would be women's physique, and then bodybuilding.
You know, and I think it would be interesting to hear what your thoughts are. And if I was a lady considering competing and we were having a conversation, do I go to bikini, wellness, or figure? How would you sort us properly?
I would say it depends on what your shape is today. So if you are somebody who has been working out for a really long time, you have a lot of muscle, you have a really developed upper body, figure might be an area that you're good for. If you are somebody who has really good legs, really good glutes, you just naturally hold more weight and not necessarily fat. I think that's a big misunderstanding with this category is you want people with bigger, naturally bigger lower bodies. So then the wellness category would be really good for you. If you are somebody who is a little bit smaller and you are wanting to test out the waters and see where you fall, bikini is a really good place to start.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what really wellness is fairly new too across all the federations. It's only, I think I don't remember it from even, 3 years ago? It's kind of when it got rolling.
It's only had 1 year at the Olympia, and it's only been around for, I think, about 3 years. They kind of started doing it more in South America first, prior to kind of coming over here.
Wow. Yeah, it's, I love wellness. I think wellness is an amazing category.
It's great.
And like I think what's cool about wellness too is that I think there was a certain group of women who had these great legs that were kind of being excluded because it just didn't make sense.
Totally. Those Brazilians.
Yeah.
Those Brazilians. They have the butt, they have the legs, they look incredible. And that's the thing. They weren't doing as well in the bikini category for that exact reason. Yeah. So it was perfect, that they finally came out with this. Because for so long, it's like bikini is such a small category and figure is so large that there's not anything in between that. So finally, they did have something that fills that void. It's still very different from the two, but it kind of gives that middle ground now.
Yeah. And is there... I guess no different than men, you'd see some crossover into the different categories?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So especially at the amateur level, once you get to a professional level, you definitely would not see that because you have to really fit your category.
Right.
But for a lot of people who are starting off, if somebody does hold more fat or more muscle in their lower body, trying out bikini and wellness is something. Or some people who have overall really good muscular structure will try to do figure as well as the wellness category. Or even if they're bigger than that, if they wanted to do bodybuilding, women's physique, and figure, you have heard of other people trying all the categories. Yeah.
I guess, there's a question in there. But firstly, maybe my thought is that I always thought it was strange that someone... And maybe at the amateur level, I guess you have to be flexible. But I always thought it was weird, and for men in particular, how could you go into bodybuilding, which is kind of, you're supposed to be huge and ripped, but then also be competing in physique, which is supposed to be kind of your cover model sort of look, and win both?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. Like, you should only be able to win. You can't... You know what I mean?
I agree. And that's one thing that when it comes down to the judging, you have certain criteria. And again, it all depends on who shows up. So you could technically be the best and fit both of the criteria when you are at the amateur level because you are not further developed that you really only fit into one category. At the same time, though, I do think that it is the responsibility of the judges to set those standards at an amateur level in order to be able to have that carry through into a national level and into a professional level. So.
It was interesting at the first show that I did, which was the Alberta Bodybuilding Association show. There was a guy on stage and he was competing against us in physique, but the guy was really big and just had a lot of mass on him and it looked fabulous. His name was Travis. And literally during the show, he's up on stage with us and they stopped the show and they said, "Travis, we need you to compete in this other category." They pulled him out of the category and he won the other category.
Yeah, and that makes sense though.
Brilliant. Really, I thought that was the best thing ever. Because then in another show I was in, I got beat by the same guy in 2 different categories. Yeah. Which to me, that seemed weird that his physique didn't change between the categories.
Yep.
I don't know, maybe there's something else deeper in there that I don't want to admit. I was so far back from competing that that's a possibility too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I do agree with that there should definitely be set standards between the different categories. Yeah. And, it just depends on who shows up. So realistically, if somebody looks the best out of all the people that are on the stage, no matter what category they're in, it's hard to not give it to them.
That's right.
So
what's one of the questions I was thinking as you were talking was, when you look at, again, of course, women and men have a different level of body fat. And we kind of acknowledge that there's maybe 5 is probably an easy number % difference between men and women at, when they're at the same level. When you look at the different categories for women, where do you see bikini, through the different categories for level? Sometimes we call it conditioning. Maybe it's the politically correct way to talk about body fat. I don't know. But where do you see the different levels of body fat for women in those categories?
Yeah. So when you're looking at bikini and wellness, what they've set for standards is they want them to have the same level of conditioning. Okay. So that's kind of deceiving because wellness athletes hold a lot more muscle on their body in comparison to bikini athletes. So that's why often they look harder, they look grainier, they look like they have more separation and more detail to their muscle. But realistically, the standard is that they do have the same level of conditioning. So it can kind of appear like they are a little bit harder, but realistically, they're not supposed to be. Then when you graduate up into something like figure, you want to see a lot leaner of a physique. You want to see striations, you want to see graininess, you want separation between the muscle, whereas in the other two categories, you want shape and you want definition, but you don't want to see striations.
Right.
So for bikini athlete, you don't want to see like striated delts.
Shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. You don't want those pumpkin delts. You don't want to see feathering in the quads. That's a no-no.
Yeah, right. So, and then up to...
Yeah, and then physique and bodybuilding, that is like as shredded as you can get.
Yeah. It's interesting that the women's physique and men's physique aren't the same. They're in different spots, really?
Totally.
Right? Isn't that
they
confusing?
Call it men's bikini. Men's bikini. That's what men's physique is.
In my last show, I learned a hard lesson.
What was
that? I was cutting, and and everyone cuts different, right? Mm-hmm. So I had these in my head. I kept thinking, I got to keep cutting. I got to keep cutting. I got to get to this point. And so what was happening is my upper body was shredded, crazy.
Yeah.
But my lower body, not as much, right? But it wouldn't matter in physique because you have board shorts on.
Yeah.
So I get to the show, and the guy who beat me, he was in amazing shape, but like he easily had 10 pounds of body fat on me. So I was like, there was like a side-by-side picture of our backs, and mine is like, there's the rhomboids, there's the upper trap, there's the lower trap. I was like, wow. And his was just like, blah.
Interesting.
It was crazy. So he beat me in Masters.
Yeah, that was just in the Canadian
Naturals. Yeah.
So do you think that like feeding yourself into the show and filling up a little bit more maybe would have given you that extra edge? Or
I think so. Yeah. And it probably like I was using a coach who was and maybe we have to talk about coaching too, but the coach I was talking to probably was more comfortable with working with women. And then so you know what you need to do.
Yeah.
And so then the other part that he was good at was probably working with bodybuilding men. So then in his mind, you just keep shredding until there's nothing left. You cut ketchup.
Yeah.
And so when I got to peak week and I was, what he was telling me was just simply, you're fine, right? But I should have just like tripled what I was eating.
Yeah.
Just to kind of fill right up. But
totally.
Like I still came in good and I won, really. Yeah. But I didn't win the next category that I wanted to win.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So. And I hate that when you come in and you're like, I'm happy with what I brought and I did well, but at the same time you're like, I know I could do better. I know I can look better. But you take it as a learning experience and now you just apply this to every other show that you do. And exactly.
Yeah. And I guess, and it's maybe part of the coaching conversation that we need to have too. And it's, maybe the lead in is I didn't really have a coach, because I was being super arrogant about it. I have a coaching certificate. I thought I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I really, if I had had a coach that, had, taken their slipper off and given me the whack, I would have been better. So anyway, so what are your thoughts on coaching? So you do some coaching. Yes. So like the lead in is you do a certain kind of coaching now and it's not really everything.
Yeah, so it's not prep coaching at all. I do all lifestyle clients. So you could kind of say it's more of like transformation coaching. So people that are maybe not as advanced when it comes to working out, people who don't know a whole lot about nutrition. I'm kind of coming in and being that little mediator to say, here's some little things that I know. How can we apply this to your day-to-day life? And how can we get you to a better point with your body so that you feel comfortable, you're making healthier choices, and you can take these as lessons and apply this to your life and move on so that you don't need me for forever.
Right.
So I want people to learn health and fitness it's not something that's unattainable. It's not something that can't be done year round. And it's something that people can just stick with for their whole lives. I don't think it should be a diet. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, and so one thing in that, you actually didn't say it, but I think it's in there somewhere, is a sustainability component to health and eating. Yeah. So what do you think there? What's the problem with our society these days?
I think that people want a quick fix. People want instant gratification for what they do. They think that, if I'm dieting for like 1 week, I should see amazing results. But it's like, it didn't take you 1 week to put this fat on, so why would you expect that it's going to take 1 week to lose it?
Right.
And that's the craziest thing about our industry is it's just like people want instant gratification. They want things and they want things to happen now. And that's just not the reality of it. It's a marathon, not a race.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm working with, as mentioned off screen, I'm working with this one gentleman who's lost 50 pounds at least, right? And the reality is we have these conversations about this, and it took him his entire life to get there.
Yeah.
Like, he's almost 40. So it took him 40 years of overeating.
Yeah.
You're not going to lose that
No.
in a month or 2 months or even 6 months or a year.
And you have to change like your habits over time, and you need to rewire your brain in order to be able to break these habits and to create new habits.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I try and teach my clients as well is, you have a certain outlook on the way that you're living your life now. Let me just give you these few little things so that we can change those little habits. And with it, you shouldn't have to be restrictive. You shouldn't have to cut out food groups. I hate that people say in order to diet, you need to cut out gluten and you need to cut out dairy. And it's just like, well, why? Why would I need to cut those things out? If I don't have an issue with it, if I can digest it, there's no issues. It's calories in versus calories out.
Right.
So
it's fairly simple. Here's I'll give you my my budding new diet theory. And it's I'm naming it for the show even. It's going to be called quantum dieting. And I think what happens, and maybe I don't know, maybe you'll say, that's insane. Why are you saying this? But I think what happens is that as we go through life, we just kind of get into a pattern of eating. And that I think more than we actually realize, that pattern is probably fairly consistent for the most part. And we probably just eat a fairly consistent amount of food until Saturday or that one day. And instead of eating, pick a number, 3,000 calories a day, which is probably too much in the first place, then we end up at the buffet. And then that day we eat 9,000 calories. And so but then nothing ever happens. And we know in like overall in diet, if you overeat, you have to compensate somewhere. You can't just, okay, I overeat, so I won't do that again. But then I do, and then I do. Yep. And I think that's a big part of the sustainability thing is that there's a cost to overeating.
There is.
You can't just, okay, well, I'll just forget that happened.
Yeah.
Like it shows up later.
Balance.
Yeah, it shows up later.
Totally. And that's the thing too. I think that people get into the perpetual cycle of then overeating, and then that can turn into over exercising.
Right.
And overdoing cardio. And they think that, because I ate this one thing, now I need to jump on a treadmill and do this. And they, by burning those more calories, you're just going to get more hungry, and then you're going to binge again. And it kind of just leads into the cycle of binging and over exercising. And people get caught in this routine too often. And like you said, then they stay consistent and they're not actually losing weight because they're not in a calorie deficit for a long enough period of time. And they just need consistency is all. Yeah. Don't cut foods out. Have a regular cheat meal. Just don't go all out and binge and then think that you need to binge on cardio after.
Yeah. How do you as a coach fit into that? Like, how do you take someone who's got these habits, which are probably, if this is where you should be, they're kind of like here, and then they have the binge day. And like, how do you as a coach jump into someone's life and make a difference?
Honestly, tell them to forget about it. Who cares that you overate one day? By having one singular meal, so there's this quote that I love. If you get a flat tire, are you going to go slash the other 3?
Ooh, that's good.
You're not going to. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Just because you overate on one day for
that's
one meal.
Smart, actually.
Yeah, I know. I heard it and I was just like, this just makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense. So if you have one meal, why are you then going to ruin the entire rest of your day because of one singular meal? It just doesn't make sense. All you need to do is go to the gym, crush your workout, put every last bit of energy that you have into that workout and fuel your muscle. Use that to build more muscle. Use that for recovery. But don't think then that, you need to throw your day away and you're just going to go on an all-out binge and eat everything else because of one singular meal.
Right. I have one young lady, I won't point any fingers because they're going to see this. And it's very much like that where, she'll eat poorly for really one meal, and then the whole psychology is just like, well, that's it for the diet. I'm just going to, eat a loaf of bread and mayonnaise for the rest of the day. And it's like, no, stop.
Yeah. That's
Get this under control.
Exactly. Yeah. Really, and that's the thing too. Just stop and think about what you've done. And when you are getting those urges that you want to continue to eat, go for a walk and really think about it. Are you actually hungry? What else has happened to you in that day? Did something stressful happen at work that is making you feel this way? Or is something going on in your personal life that you just feel the need to eat? Yeah. It's just a lot of people use this as a coping mechanism, and it's like really figure out what exactly it is that you're feeling in that moment. Have a glass of water, go for a walk, distract yourself a little bit. It's there's other tools that you can do to get yourself past a period of like that so that you don't have to binge and go through the cycle over and over.
What was and you probably have seen this a lot too, is at the shows you always hear people talking about the hangries, and just And I remember at my first show, and everyone was like, actually, it was an NPAA show where you're giving a talk almost, and someone's reading your talk for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm so glad that this person dealt with me while I was hangry. And I think what I realized later on, after it took a little bit of time, was that's coming from your mind, really not knowing how to deal with what is a very chemical sort of thing going on in your body. And then by the time you're into your sixth prep, it's just like, whatever.
Totally.
Yeah, it hurts a little bit, but that's just chemicals. I'm not going to be mean to people.
Yeah, I never really understood that, and that was one thing that I, would check in with my fiance, and I'd be like, "Am I like this? Am I grouchy when I'm on prep?" And he's just like, "No, like you haven't been. You've been pleasant to deal with." And we are making these choices as competitors in order to put ourselves through these extreme dieting and through this extreme cardio. So for you to lash out at somebody else in your life and say that you're hangry all the time, I mean, it's exactly what you said. It's all a mental state, and you're choosing your attitude for that day.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why I've gotten heavily into journaling, because every single morning I like to write down, what am I feeling right now? Do a total scan of my body. Do I have a headache? Do I have muscle sore? Do I have pains anywhere? What is my attitude for the day?
I don't have enough paper.
Just a long list.
Oh man, the pain section here.
It's really good though to be able to just kind of point out those little things and just at least have a little bit of self-awareness of where you're at for the day. And one thing too is, if you start off a day in one mood, you don't have to continue that mood through your whole day. You have the ability to change your mood and to change your attitude.
Yeah.
So just because you're hungry and you're angry that you're hungry, change that. Make yourself busy. Find something else to distract yourself. You don't have to live feeling like that. That is a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think once you start to realize that it's just a chemical thing going on in your body, then it's easier to just manage it.
Food is fuel.
Yeah.
If food doesn't have to be delicious and amazing and satisfying and fulfilling and everything else when you're on prep, I mean, in real life, yes,
it's okay to feel hungry.
It is.
I think that's what people don't get. It's okay to feel hungry.
You should.
You felt full for the last 40 years.
Exactly. If you're not hungry, I don't think you're doing it right.
Yeah, that's right. You got to feel a little bit painful.
Yeah.
It's the, and I guess from a coaching perspective too, and I know that, you helped out Aaliyah.
Yeah.
Aaliyah, my daughter. And she loved that. She thought that was amazing. And
I love doing posing. It's so much fun. It's something that I would love to be able to work with some more girls on and get some more clients doing that. I do have a background doing figure skating, so I did that for years. I did a bit of dance when I was in school, and I think that it's just something that it's so beautiful. It's artwork, and you can really look at what the pros are doing and take little bits of each of their routine and kind of morph it into your own and figure out what works for your body, what works for your shape, what kind of flow do you have, what kind of presentation do you want to have on stage? Do you want to be sassy? Do you want to be cute? Do you want to have a sexy, more flirtatious vibe? So it kind of allows you to develop your own persona. And that's one thing is I think people really need to figure out, what do I want to exude when I'm on stage? Who do I want to be? Because you're not you. You're not. It's not just Amber Cresswell walking on stage. Yeah,
it is you, but it's not you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the you you're presenting.
Exactly. Yeah. You need to all work together.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is I've watched a lot of posing, both men and women. And I think one thing that's really fascinating is that it's interesting to watch someone walk and how their feet don't move at the same rate sometimes. And some, like their right foot's coming really high and their left foot's not coming high, and then they're bringing their knee up in a weird way. And it's interesting. It almost seems contrived, and it's like your brain is trying to compensate for this robotic sort of thing you're doing. It's
Well,
and
it depends how dehydrated you are as well.
True.
Depends if you have enough sodium in you, because I know for bodybuilders, a lot of them, sometimes you'll see them cramping, which is very unfortunate, because I can just imagine how painful that is on stage to be flexing so intensely that all of a sudden something starts cramping and you can't flex anymore. So it's all that fun stuff that goes into.
I think coaches can fix that. That's my honest opinion on that. I think
can.
I think if you know that that's coming, the coach should be aware of that.
Electrolyte balance, definitely enough water in you. People think that you shouldn't drink water, and I think that's also another differentiator between like the bikini category and something like a bodybuilding is I would keep in water and sodium and food and all of that stuff on show day. I wouldn't cut that stuff out, because you're going to be holding the same amount of water in your muscles as you are outside of your muscles. So although they're saying, let's cut out water to reduce that underneath your skin, you're also going to be reducing that within your muscles as well.
Right. Yeah,
you can't control where it's being held in your muscle. So,
That's been actually, that topic is, you can find that a lot now out there, and whether or not you should take water and salt and the whole electrolyte balance going into shows. When I was going out to the last show out in Toronto, I was on the plane, And I was struggling with cramping, and cause I was, what day was it? I was like a fair bit out from the show when we were flying out there. And I was getting back cramps and leg cramps and just a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And then we were coming into landing, and the pilot flips the light on, please sit down, put your belt on. My left leg locked up so hard, and I couldn't get out to do anything about it. And I was just like, oh, I'm going to die.
Were you cutting out salt and water as well?
I wasn't really, actually, but I think I'm just prone to cramping. Like if I have a really hard, like actually before you came, my biceps were just locking out, and it was like, what happened? That was like 2 days ago. So.
I do get that as well. So like my feet will cramp and my toes will curl in so intensely.
Yep.
It's so painful. I hate it. And for me, it's if I don't have enough salt. So I have to salt my food very generously. But I also drink like 6 to 8 liters of water a day. So for me, I'm constantly diluting my electrolytes.
That's what I'm drinking too.
Yeah, of course. He's got pop in there. He's lying.
I have, and this, I don't know, maybe it's something to look into, but there's they call them salt tablets, but they're actually sodium, potassium, magnesium, one other thing. And they come in a tablet, and they're for like extreme hiking or like extreme cycling or whatever. But they're wildly expensive for what's in them, but they actually work really fast and really well.
Yeah, I could definitely see something like that being helpful.
I used to do competitive mountain biking as well. And,
wow, that's intense.
Literally, for anyone old, we would all have in the back of our shirts like handfuls of these tablets.
Yeah.
And I remember several times, I'd be riding along, and some guy would be hobbled over by his bike, and he's like, dude, do you have any salt tablets? Like, here, man.
Oh, goodness.
Good thing it was salt tablets and not something else.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but cramping's a weird thing. So I don't know if we completely understand why we cramp always, because I don't think it's just salt and water.
Yeah, no,
There's
I
more
don't think
to
so
it.
either.
There's muscle damage that I think makes you cramp too. So
probably.
Yeah.
Probably depends where it is in your body. And
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger used to say that he would come out of these massive workouts and he would be cramping all the time. So I thought, I'm going to embrace that. I'm all about it. So it's good. So, yeah. So what other, not that you do coaching for prep, but, is there any kind of neat little tie it with a bow type ideas for prep that women should consider as they're getting into it? And then we should talk about coaching for prep too.
Yeah. Do you mean mental state or
just mental? Someone's going into their first show. Like, what are you gonna say? Here's what you need to think about, be prepared for, be ready for.
I think the main thing is listen to your coach. If you have done your research to find your coach, I think you should listen to what they say. A lot of girls will sign up with somebody, or people in general will sign up with somebody, and they will slightly follow the plan, but not 100%. And I think that if you are going into a prep like this, you need to make sure that you're all in it. So if your coach is giving you X amount of cardio, you need to make sure that you're doing that and you're not exceeding that. I see that so often that people will start to go over and above what their coach is doing and be like, oh, well, I need to be leaner faster. But it's like, if you're doing that now, in a few weeks when this stalls, what are you going to do then?
There's a price to pay.
Yeah. Right. Or even girls will start snacking, and it's just like, well, that's not on your plan. Why are you eating it? And it's just like, you're just damaging yourself and you're hurting yourself. Why are you putting this much time and money and effort into it when you're self-sabotaging in these little ways that you don't have to?
Right. So when you look at the coaches, in my mind, I kind of see the coach has this, you have a lifestyle coach, kind of like what you're doing, where you have to get healthy and be in the right spot. And then I kind of break the prep coaching into 2 areas, where you have I gotta get down to weight. And then you have the other part of the coaching is it's kind of the stage stuff where you need to deal with, are you going to look good on stage? Are you posing properly? And then also, are you, it's that last week of prep where you're just loading water or unloading water or, that. So to me, that's been a really important part of the coaching element is anyone can lose weight, right?
Totally.
But that last couple weeks it's a weird time.
Very scientific.
Yeah.
And I think within bodybuilding, because there's not like research on it and there's not like school that you can go to that teaches you, oh, this is what you do at this many weeks out and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
It's all just kind of learning as you do it. So there's not really like one set way. So
Right.
each coach will have their own different things. So some people will manipulate water and sodium. Other coaches don't. They think that they leave it in the whole time. Some people really want to deplete you down the last week and then really fill you up. You know, there's differences in prep if they're going to do a front load or a back load of carbs or no carbs at
Right.
all. So it's just really specific. And I think one of the important things is look at the coach, look at all the athletes that they have, see how they look, have conversations with the athletes, have conversations with coaches, see who you jive with, get to know their
Right.
style. Go in there with a list of questions, know what you want to
Yeah.
ask them.
What do you think about, like, when you look at the kind of the overall picture or whatever we call it about there's all these coaches. There's a lot that are online. And I don't know, like, there's a guy, and I just saw it today. The guy's coaching a girl, like, he's in the U.S. and he's coaching a girl in, like, Denmark. It's like,
My coach is in Australia.
so how does that work? Like, what do you do? Like, you know, how do you say, I feel this doesn't feel right? Or, you know, like, how does it work when you can't look them in the eye? What do
Yeah.
you do?
So my first coach actually was local, Kevin and Wendy Ashby, who actually started the NPAA Federation.
Oh,
So
wow.
them I did see in person every once in a while, but
Okay.
majority of our conversation was also online. With my coach now, who is in Australia, we do conversations on WhatsApp all the time. So I'm constantly sending check-ins to him. So we do check-in
Right.
photos, check-in videos, daily check-ins just to see weight and how I'm feeling and all that kind of stuff. So he's definitely monitoring me in terms of how I'm feeling and how I'm physically
Gotcha.
looking. So just basing it off of all these things, I think nowadays with the internet, with Instagram, most of the coaches that you find are going to be online anyways. So if somebody's online coaching, but they're in Calgary, or somebody's online coaching, but they're in Australia, you know,
Sure.
what's really the difference?
Right.
It's both the exact same
Yeah.
format,
Right. Huh. The work that you do as a coach, are you doing it
all online.
all online?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes I will do in-person personal training sessions
Right.
if somebody wants to do something like that. But majority of what I do is sending meal plans, sending workout
Yeah.
plans, cardio plans, and then they follow, send me all of their information. So
Right.
each week it would just basically be responding with a checklist of all the things that I've asked them to respond on, and then making adjustments according to that and what their photos look like and how they're feeling.
That's great. What do you
Yeah.
do for posing? Like, how do you manage posing on an online environment?
Yeah, so FaceTime is a really good one. Just doing any kind of like Zoom calls or stuff like that, Skype,
Right.
everything like that. That's just like
Yeah.
virtual face-to-face, basically.
Yeah. Do you like the workshops? Like, I know that this feels like that's becoming more popular, that there's posing workshops to do.
Yeah, I think it's really great. I think it's I don't think it's necessarily a good place if you are a intermediate to advanced.
Okay.
But I think if you are somebody who does not have an understanding of it, you've maybe never necessarily done a show before, I think it's a really good place to start to know
Right.
what are your mandatory poses,
Right.
what should you be trying to achieve within this pose, and just kind of going from there. But in terms of like putting your flair onto things and
Right.
finding your own personal style, you're not going to get that from a
No,
workshop.
that's right.
Yeah.
It was, you know, it was fascinating at the last in the Toronto show I was at. They had all the athletes in the room, and the guy came out and he was talking, and he said, all right, all you male bodybuilders, how many mandatory poses do you have? There was like 2 people that knew. And it's like, what? The show's tomorrow.
Yeah,
How do
they
you
should
not
know that
know?
off the top of their head.
Yeah.
What is
was
it, like
kinda
8
shocking.
poses?
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's 7 or 8. Yeah, it's 7 or 8. I
Something
think
like
it's
that.
like 2 for physique, 4 for classic, 8 for. Yeah, it was double.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love their posing. Bodybuilding posing is so cool. And that's the one thing that I love about women's physique and women's bodybuilding is they actually have like
Yeah.
a full routine. They get a
Right.
full minute on stage. We get 15 seconds. I hate
Yeah.
it. Bikini girls get no time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's too bad.
What about men's physique? How much time do you guys
Men's
get for yours?
physique, you're only a front and back pose.
Yeah,
And
so it's pretty
transitions. So transitions kind of count as it's not a pose, but it is a pose.
Relaxed pose.
And it's more than I need. Cause
Yeah. You don't like the stage
oh
time?
man, it's like, I feel like I can do it in a mirror by myself. No
Yeah.
problem at all.
Yeah.
But man, you put me on stage, like in my last set of photos, it's like I had great abs, and the photos, there wasn't a single ab out of the 6 that should have been there.
Really?
Yeah. It was weird, actually. Like, and I think in past competitions, I've had a coach there yelling at me more. But in the Toronto show, and you were at that show at a different time, but the same venue, you couldn't hear people, you couldn't see people. Like,
No.
it was very, you were just on stage by yourself almost, is what
Yeah.
it felt like. So,
Do you black out when you're on stage?
No, I kind of I thrive on being on stage. So it's kind of,
me too.
I like it, but I'm not a dancer at all. Like if there's any part of me, that's not part of my life.
Yeah.
So I just have
You just
nothing.
need to crank the tunes next time you're posing, and don't do it in a mirror.
Yeah, I
Do
guess.
not
That's
pose
probably
in front
true.
of a mirror.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing that you can do, because then you get used to looking at yourself and making corrections based on that. But what you need to know is learning how
What's the
things
feel?
feel.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you need to mimic that exact same feeling.
I probably would have done better if I had done more and better posing, but it's the reality is in physique, it's almost embarrassing. You have 2 poses,
Yeah.
right? And then you have
Well, then
these
you have to master
bodybuilders.
those. You've got less poses to master. What's your
You'd think
excuse?
So old. I don't know what the excuse is, but it it wasn't working out very good. So yeah, I got outposed for sure.
You
but
won.
I was too lean
you
too,
obviously
so.
did well.
Yeah, I won in the Grandmaster category. So
Yeah.
and in
Was
fact,
it a big class?
there was like 1 million people. No, it was and it's a national show. So basically it was
Yeah.
just the top people from each region. So I think
Yeah.
it was 5 or 6 people
Yeah.
that got there. So
My class was pretty small too. There was only
Yeah.
4 in it,
Yeah.
which was unfortunate. I want a big class next time I
Yeah.
compete. So that's why I'm North.
well,
Should be big.
in the men's open physique, I think there was 45 people.
And that's so much more fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And I think what happened for us was me and the guy that beat me in Masters. So I won Grandmaster, and then he won in Masters. And then we got to Open, and they were just like, you guys have had enough time. And they just focused on the younger crowd.
Yeah.
And they let them out on front. We didn't even get called out.
Oh my goodness.
It was kind of crazy. To win over here and then not even get called out.
That's too bad. That's unfortunate. You put in a lot of time and effort and money. You want your time. You want your time to shine.
I guess maybe as the older I get, I think, it's time for the kids too.
Yeah.
Gotta give them an opportunity to look good.
Yeah.
I beat them up enough as it is. So, what do you think about the differences in, when you look at the different categories in training? Do you see a different, is a bikini girl train different than bodybuilder? Maybe at the extreme
and
levels.
no. Yes,
But
and
is it a spectrum?
Definitely a spectrum. So when I was first coming into the category and when I was competing in bikini, I would have been doing more of a full body workout, and I'm working all of the different areas because I need to build up my back and my shoulders. I need to build up my legs. I need to build up my glutes. I need to build up everything. So I would be training all of my body parts, which is more similar to what a physique a figure women's physique or bodybuilder would be training.
Were you doing push-pull legs? Were you doing full body
More of
splits,
a bro split. So
Okay.
one body part per week is kind of how I got into it.
Right.
And then once I've built up my certain areas, then you kind of focus on, okay, which ones do I need to train more? And then kind of building out my
Gotcha.
split that way.
Right.
Nowadays though, my training is so different. It's so different. It's very specific to certain areas just because I have, I guess, fewer areas that need more work.
Right.
So for me now, it's basically just shoulders and glutes. I train glutes 4 days a week now.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's all glute training.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So then if you're looking at one of the bigger categories or something like figure, a lot of their training is going to mostly be upper body development because you really want that big taper. You really want those cap delts.
Right.
You really want a good quad sweep. So you're focusing on more of the whole body and the structure in comparison to just certain areas. Like in bikini, you don't even see your back. You want your hair to cover your back. So you're not what would be the point to waste a day training that when I could be training glutes more?
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. And when in your workouts, are you, everyone talks about progressive overload and, are you worried about, I got to deadlift 300 pounds? Or are you more, how do you look at your reps and sets within your exercises?
Yeah, so it definitely changes depending on what my caloric intake is, depending on how much energy that I have to expend. So I was just in my off season, which means that I was being fed very well.
Yeah.
So a lot of my training was progressive overload, and I was going in there how much can I lift today? What is the maximum amount that I can lift without my form being compromised, and making sure that I'm getting a really good stretch, a really good contraction, and a good squeeze with the muscle. So I was definitely going into the gym and pushing myself and training as hard as I could, whereas now that I'm going to be starting to cut down a little bit, I'm definitely going in there with the same intensity, but the reality is I'm not going to be able to lift the exact same amount. So I'm going to be trying to say, okay, if I hit X amount of reps with this weight last week, can I get one more rep in this week? So not necessarily increasing the weight, but increasing the reps. So still time under tension, still trying to, increase my workload that way, but just slight variations in the training.
As you go towards, say, a show, and do you see kind of an evolution of where you are cutting volume, cutting intensity, or do you? That's because the reason I ask is I know guys that say, no, you build into the show. And it's like, not so sure. Not so
So
sure.
it can kind of go in a little bit of a wave for me. I find that like as I'm getting into it, I can still continue to climb, but there is a point when you hit that where it's just like, okay, well now I'm just too exhausted and I can't necessarily push the same. But the goal is to maintain your intensity, because the less food that you're getting, the less food that you have to repair your muscles.
Right.
So you still want to make sure that you're lifting as much weight as you can to keep your muscles full of blood, to keep your muscles working, and to try and retain as much muscle mass as you have. You don't want to then be like, oh, well, I'm tired, I'm going to start lifting less, because you're just going to be wasting away anyways as you're dieting down. So you want to try and keep the intensity, whether that happens or not. Right. That's a different scenario, but the goal is to maintain it.
Right. One of the things that I've really started to notice in working out where I work out, which I won't say because maybe they're watching, is that I think if you're surrounded by people who have a competitive nature and who have competed especially, the intensity stays higher in the group. It's like this group think, And then when you're around people that are recreational exercisers, I feel like everyone's starts to tip off.
Yeah.
And I feel like even where we're at now, I feel like it's got a bit of a suck of the intensity suck. I don't know what you'd otherwise call it. And no one's really working out that hard.
I agree.
Yeah.
I totally see that too. And I think that when you go back to like old school bodybuilding mentality, like if you look at like the Ronnie Coleman's, like look at how much weight he was pressing. Like it was just like every single time he went into the gym, he was going in there to destroy it.
Flat out. Yeah, that's right.
He wanted to beat his record every single time. And my fiance is one of those people who every time he goes into the gym, he needs to make sure that he's lifting as much as he can. And that's one thing that you don't see.
Yeah.
And I can understand it on one perspective that you want to make sure that you're not injuring yourself so that you can continue to get in and perform every single time. But if you want to develop really dense muscle, the only way to do that is by lifting heavy weights. That's it.
I got to go work out with Harvey.
You do.
It'd be so fun.
Yeah. He will kill you.
Sometimes I just need the kick in the butt,
It's so true. And that's why I love working out with other competitors too, because it's nice to have somebody who is more advanced than I am, because then it gives me something to try and work towards and strive towards. And that's why I loved working out with my fiance for so long, is because he's so much stronger than me that every time I got into the gym, he would push me and he'd be like, today we deadlifted 225, tomorrow we're going to deadlift this. And I'd be like, oh, I don't know, that looks a little heavy. And then he'd be like, no, we're throwing plates on. And eventually I got up to deadlifting 315.
Oh, wow.
For a double.
Really?
For a double.
Holy crap,
I can show you videos
that's
after.
impressive.
It was.
Wow.
That's when I was training for figure and when I was, really going hard in the gym. And that's the thing, like my training, it was the best training I've ever done then.
Yeah.
And I would love to get back to that, but it's such a complete different style that it definitely does not jive with the direction that I'm trying to go.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people get in, like it's just everyone I know almost, is they'll have a routine and it'll say, okay, I got to do bench press. I'm going to do 4 sets of 10.
Yeah.
And then they do 10, they get up and they go do something else. And it's like, wow, like I don't think you worked out very hard just now.
No. And the thing is too, and it's just like, why would you cap yourself? If you can do 10 easily.
Do 15.
Exactly.
Do
just
whatever
do more.
you can do. Or put more weight on. Today it was interesting. I had watched some videos and I maybe my mind is here where it's like, I think I need to work out a lot harder than I am.
Yeah.
And so one of the videos was like, you got to do centuries. If you need a reset, do centuries.
What is
that? So a century is when you do 100 reps.
Okay. Yeah.
In one set. And so
with no break?
Well, the break is only like I can't move my arm.
Yeah,
so I got to
dying.
take 3 breaths and then I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
So last night I did bicep tricep I did 2.5 sets. I couldn't even get through the 3rd set of hundreds. And that's probably why my arms are sore. And then today I did incline dumbbell press. Yeah. And I was like, I can dumbbell press a fair amount, and I was using 25s. It was pretty funny actually, but
I think Rich Piana was one of those people that did that as well. It was like 100 curls and stuff like that for his arm days. Yeah,
and I think it's, and I don't know if I would say, or if someone said I need a really good routine to get big, I don't think that that's the routine.
Yeah.
But I think if you need a reset to say, are you working very hard?
Yeah.
That's a good reset. So that's a
Totally.
good to wake you up and say, you need to hurt a little bit. And if you're not hurting, you're probably just going through the motions.
Well, the thing is, too, that people will start to feel the slightest bit of discomfort and the slightest bit of muscle burning, and they're like, oh, okay, done. And it's just like, no. You keep going then. You keep going harder until you cannot move anymore, until your legs are shaking that you can't do it.
Yeah, pause for a second.
Take a breath, exactly. And that's why I love things like drop sets, you know. You fail at one weight, okay, let's drop it down and let's keep going. And let's fail at the next weight, okay, let's drop it down again. You know, or doing partial repetitions. Do something up until a certain point and then rep it out and just get that last little bit of blood flow to the muscle.
Yeah, there's some great videos on it too.
Totally.
Really.
So many different training styles.
You probably follow Dana.
Which
DLB.
Dana? Oh, Dana Lynn Bailey, yes.
Like
she was the very first women's physique winner.
Shoulders, man, that's crazy. And just like partials, drop sets, like it's all together. She does like everything.
She does.
All in one routine. It's amazing.
Yeah, she was one of my inspos for a long time.
Yeah.
When I was training for figure, I absolutely loved her.
Yeah.
Her and her husband, they just seem like such great people. And where they started
I agree.
and where they've come, it's amazing.
They seem like they'd be fun people just to hang out with.
They do. They're so real and raw, and I do like them.
And I think, Rob would be fun to... He's been on stage and done some pretty great stuff in his singing career and stuff. So.
Yeah, and they're like with race cars and their whole warehouse, and they're it's
they're pretty
cool.
fun. Yeah. So is there any like ideas when you look at coming into, well, maybe even on the lifestyle side about cardio, like how do you treat cardio when you're coming into firstly lifestyle, and then we're going into prep, and then also maybe as a finer point in that last week before you hit stage, what do you do on cardio?
Yeah, so...
Of course, you just run all day because you need to lose 10 extra pounds because you didn't get where you're supposed to be.
No, that should not be the case. You don't want to be there.
Right.
So I'll start with prep. So with prep, currently what I'm doing right now is just one session a week of cardio.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of a nice place to start. You want to work your way into cardio and not start off with a whole bunch right at the beginning.
Right.
And inevitably, you will have to do more cardio as you are going through your prep. I have heard of girls doing upwards of 2 hours of cardio a day.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, I've never actually gotten to that point. Cross my fingers that I don't ever have to. It is. And when you're eating 800 calories is what I've heard. It's very difficult, but we're in a physique sport, and at the end of the day, sometimes people have to go to those extremes in order for their body to respond and to lose those last bits of fat. Yeah. It just is how it is. So in terms of peak week, I've definitely heard different variations that people can do. So sometimes people will keep cardio in all the way up until show day. Generally, I hear that more frequently if people do still have fat to lose.
Right.
When you're entering a peak week, you want to be ready. You don't want to have to be playing catch up right at the last minute. So for me, I was not doing cardio going into my peak week for my shows just because I was already in really good conditioning. We had COVID hit, so I was prepping for almost a year going into the show. So I was definitely ready way ahead of time. And if you can, try and be ready ahead of time, because you're just going to be able to give yourself a little bit more slack near the end when, your energy levels do dip and you don't have as much food and you don't have as much to give in your workouts. So
that's an interesting side note. Cardio is important to talk about, but one of the interesting things that does happen in people's dieting and going into shows is that they kind of lollygag at the beginning. I'm 16 weeks out. I'm going to cut my calories by 100 calories, and I'm going to do 15 minutes of cardio once a week. And it's why don't you do it all at the beginning so you don't have to do it at the end?
That's exactly it.
I was telling this one guy I'm working with is wouldn't it be better to know where you're at a month out from the show and then just say, hey, I'm good?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Can you imagine?
Well, that's the thing. Too many people, they just start too late. I think for some reason, people think that prep should be a 12-week thing. But I start at 20 weeks out. If you want to be competitive, you need to give yourself that time, because you don't know if life's going to happen. Other things pop up. We actually had one of our friends pass away when I was about 4 weeks out from my last show.
Oh, wow.
And that threw me off for probably about a week. It threw off my digestion. It threw off my mood. It threw off my working out. And you have little things like that. People will lose jobs.
Right.
People can have just stuff happen in their personal lives, break up with their boyfriend, or, whatever happens. So you want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time that if these variables do pop up, you're ready ahead of time so you can kind of have a little bit of relaxation when some of these points do hit.
Yeah. And, the other reality to it, and you're probably a good proof of this, is that this is a sport and it's something we do. It's kind of just for fun.
It is.
Like you can just stop.
It is.
And just go back to regular life at any time.
People don't believe that when they're in prep, though.
No,
People want to believe
focused.
that, like, this is the only show, and if I don't do this show, then I'll die. And it's like, no. There's shows every year. There'll always be shows.
You could almost do one every weekend.
Totally.
Like, you just have to switch federations as you go.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was funny just thinking about cardio. There's a friend of mine. His name's Corey. Maybe you'll see this. And he posted something on Instagram just saying, "Oh, I'm back on cardio. This really sucks." And I'm like, "Why don't you just stop eating so much?"
If only it were that easy. Food is so tasty.
Yeah, but I think he got the point. So
yeah.
If you have to do tons of cardio, then you miss something earlier on in the game.
Well, that's the thing too, and that's why it's really important for people to make sure that in their off season they do have a little bit of structure. This is if they want to be competitive. If people are just doing this just for the fun of doing it, like, you don't need to do all these things. But if you're doing the sport, like, you want to get somewhere in the sport, your off season, I would say, is more important than your prep, because you're setting your foundation for going into your prep. So you want to make sure that your calories are as high as they can be, your body fat is at a maintainable level, that your hormones have balanced out, you are able to put on muscle mass, and you're setting yourself up for a really good prep. So with that is also having the lower cardio.
Right. And then one of the dangers, of course, is that when you're in your off season, if you just keep gaining and gaining and gaining, you have to lose that all at some point. So if you have a line, don't cross the line, or, like, think about it as a longer game, not just, I'm just going to gain infinite amounts of weight and then I'm going to lose it all.
The way that I like to think about it is every pound of fat that you are over your stage weight is 1 week of dieting. So for me, if I'm about 20 pounds over my stage weight, that's about a 20-week prep that I'm going to have to do. Because the reality is you might lose quite a bit at the beginning, but part of that's going to be water. Part of that's going to be fat. And that's just your body getting back into it. And then you have to plan for, okay, well, what if my body stalls for a couple of weeks and then I don't drop anything?
So is there a show 80 weeks from now?
Oh, stop.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. I guess maybe it would be a little different on, like, if you're a 200-pound guy or a 300-pound guy, it's percentage a little bit. But well, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Yeah. I think mostly I sit with, like, I like 16 weeks. It's just, I think I usually get, and I probably lose 20. So that kind of makes sense, I guess.
And that's probably average. I like to give myself more time, and I like to make sure that I'm just feeling comfortable ahead of time. I'm somebody who panics about this. I've just started my prep and I want to be like, am I going to be ready in time? I mean, obviously I know that I will be, but it's just the mentality of it all. But probably a 16-week prep, I would find, is the most common. And again, it just depends how competitive do you want to be.
Right. What do you do, like, when you're in prep? Obviously, we haven't even talked about food hardly at all, but what do you do food-wise? Like, are you one to fix your macros, follow your macros, everything's written down? Are you looser? Like, what do you do? What's your diet like?
So in my off season, I will definitely follow more of a macro plan. So I will be given a food plan, and then, like, if I'm not necessarily wanting chicken and rice, I will just macro that out and I will make whatever I want for that meal. In terms of being on a prep, I like to eat the exact same thing every single day at the exact same time. I don't want to think about, it does. Have your stuff prepared. Have it ready to go. I don't want to have to think about what I'm eating. I don't want to have to put it into my fitness pal and try and, like, macro it out. And then at the end of the day, be like, oh, well, I've got some, random fats and proteins that I just need to fit in. It's just, it doesn't make sense. And it's just, when you're dieting down, you want to reduce as much thinking as possible, because there comes a point in time where thinking is difficult to do. So for me, I eat the exact same meals all the time.
Right. Do you stick to, like, the 1 gram of protein per body weight or something like that? Or what do you do for protein? So I actually
eat pretty low protein.
Okay.
So, and this is actually new with the coach that I'm on now. So before, I was more so of the 1 pound per pound, 1 gram per pound. And it's interesting because I always thought that that's what it was. But the more research that I've been doing, they actually base that off of kilograms. Not pounds.
So you're splitting into 2, like you divide it in half.
Yeah. So you're actually eating less than that. So currently right now, I'm only eating about like 110 to 130 grams of protein, depending where I am in my prep. So I'm not really eating a ton of protein to begin with. A lot of my calories are coming from my carb sources. So the logic behind that is when you are consuming your protein, it's just going to be turned into carbohydrates anyways for your body to utilize as fuel.
If you don't need them for muscle protein synthesis.
So instead of having additional protein, why don't we just skip that one step, go directly to carbs, and just feed me carbs that's just going to be converted to that anyways to burn for energy.
Yeah. In some ways, you can almost monetize it and say protein's really expensive. And if you're eating it as a food source for energy, it's just expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
It's cheaper to eat rice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you can only, there's a lot of studies around protein, how much you can eat and what makes a difference, what doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
But
Which is interesting though. So for my clients, I actually do feed them higher protein because these are people that I want to put on more muscle and to start building stuff. Yeah. And as well, your different macronutrients are going to be broken down in the body and be converted to fat in different ways. Yep. So your fat is going to be converted into fats most easily.
Right.
Carbohydrates are going to be second to that in ability to convert into fat. Right. And your protein is the most difficult to be converted into fat. Yeah,
it's the most complex process.
Yeah. So if people are eating more protein, less of that is going to be likely to be converted into fat. So it's another reason too why I'd prefer to have them on a higher protein, higher carbohydrate diet in comparison to people come to me doing ketogenesis, and I'm just like, why are you keto?
I ate a pound of bacon today.
Yeah, and I put butter in my coffee, and I'm so healthy, and I'm like, no, you're not. You're not.
I don't get it.
I know.
Well, and the funny thing is there's almost an acid test to the keto process. Is that I think a lot of bodybuilders, and I don't know if you do it, but the Sunday before the show, so we're a full week out, they just cut carbs completely and force themselves into ketosis.
Oh.
And because they're going to load into the rest of the week, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I do that. So I cut.
Would you cut
carbs.
protein as well?
No. So protein, you still have to maintain your caloric intake. So if you're, I don't know, let's just pick 2,000 for argument's sake. So if I'm going to stay at 2,000 calories, I have to slightly increase fat and massively increase protein. And then carbs just are maybe it's the token 25 carbs.
Have you taken one of the tests to see if you're in ketosis?
No, but you can tell. I think you can tell.
Because I've done keto before, strictly keto. And for me to have gotten into ketosis was very difficult because I was eating too much protein. So for me, I had to completely drop my protein and I had to really increase. So I think it was 80% of my calories were coming from fats and 20% were coming from protein because anything more than that and I couldn't get into ketosis.
Maybe it wasn't, I guess maybe I should not talk about things I don't know. But I feel you certainly can tell when the carbohydrates and muscle glycogen has left your muscles.
Yeah, when you're
a
depleting.
very clear state.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's the state, and for anyone who doesn't know, when the glucose is essentially gone from your bloodstream, which is in glycogen in your muscle, and you go to do anything, and it's you run out of energy right now.
And there's no pump.
Barely do. Yeah, there's zero pump, which is a good test for coaches.
Yeah.
If your athlete can't pump up,
they
need to start eating rice or whatever you're going to stick in them. But I remember several times just trying to do tricep press or something, and it's I'm dying here. I feel I just ran a marathon.
Yeah. And you feel weird. You look awful too. You look in the mirror and you're like, where's my definition? I know I've got abs. I know I've got shape, but I'm not seeing any of it because your muscles just also tightened, depleted.
You know what's here's an interesting thought that just came to mind as you were saying that is as I go into prep, and this is maybe something that people can apply to themselves, is we always hear about this losing muscle mass, lean muscle mass. When you don't diet, it's bad for you. Don't go for 2 hours cardio because you're going to lose all your lean muscle mass.
Yeah.
So what I did in this last year was I thought, well, what's the test? How do you know that other than going for biopsies and that sort of thing? So what I started doing is doing measurements of different body parts, and especially body parts that have very little fat. And so my arms are always paper thin fat. So I just started measuring my arm circumference on when they're hot, so pumped up, and literally didn't change through prep.
Yeah.
Maybe half an inch.
That's good then.
Isn't that crazy?
If you're retaining all of your muscle, that's awesome. Well, that's the goal.
Yeah, and if that's actually what it showed us, that's pretty impressive actually, that I didn't lose muscle.
Yeah.
But man, you looked at me, you thought, you probably have cancer.
Yeah, I know. We don't competitors
terrible.
don't look very good close to prep. No, I know. It's not a good look. How sunken in the face gets.
It's just not good.
No, it's not. I know.
People don't quite get that.
No, and that's one thing that I hate the most. Yeah. It's just how gaunt people look and just sickly.
When it's funny too, people don't quite get it, but they they know someone. I know you, and then they see you 16 weeks later when you're oh, I didn't even recognize you, and you're a totally
Yeah,
different person.
totally.
Yeah, and of course you're 10 shades brown, and
Yeah. I love
funny
it.
when that happens. So
Yeah, totally.
and that's kind of a fun part of the game too, I guess.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Show day, so much fun. Getting the
Yeah.
tan on. So I worked in tanning industry for about 6
Did you really?
years.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I worked for a few different places, managed
Yeah.
some salons. So
Yeah.
for me, when I smell fake tan, like it's just like it's like
Dang it.
nostalgia.
I agree.
I love it. Oh,
Is spray or like a
Oh, yeah.
like a light tan?
yeah, the spray.
Yeah.
Well, I did both, but for
Yeah.
me, I mostly did spray tans just
Yeah.
because it's a little bit healthier for the skin, and I was just addicted to them. So when I
Yeah.
get to tan up, I am so excited.
That's
about
funny,
it.
hey?
I love it. Yeah.
I was talking to one of the promoters a little while ago about just maybe producing some kind of video around, for the first time competitor who's going to be going through this stuff, because I think there's so much, and part of it's tanning, and people don't realize when you walk through that door, something's going to happen to you, and you probably have no clue what's about to happen.
Yeah. Well,
And-
even tanning should start a month out. Not
Yeah.
necessarily the tanning itself, but the skin preparation
Right.
that goes into that in order to make sure that your skin's at the right point
Yeah.
for tanning day. There's a lot that goes
Do you think
into
it makes that much difference, hey?
Huge difference.
Is that right?
Huge
Really?
difference.
Like, what do you think? Like, what's the...
So for me personally, I will start doing a little bit of tanning in tanning
Yeah.
beds in terms of like moisturizing and exfoliating your skin. Like at least a month out, you really
Right.
want to make sure that you have like one of those like exfoliating
Yeah.
mitts or even just like a really rough exfoliant. You want to make sure that you get off as much dead skin as you can, because any little patches of dead skin, it's going to attract more of the spray tan, and you're going
Is
to
that
be
right?
darker in
Really?
those
So
areas.
you'll get a patch?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So for me, I get like dry elbows, like especially from like
Yeah,
leaning on
for
desks
sure.
all the time. So
Yeah.
for me, if I'm not exfoliating and lotioning enough, my elbows will turn dark.
Really?
And that happened to me at my last show, and I was like, oh, those look horrible. So I was trying to
that
like fix my
right?
tan and stuff like that. Yeah. So like skin prep is
Wow.
very important. Even things like shaving and waxing. I tell people like 2 weeks out from a show, you want to start full body shaving 2
Yeah.
weeks out and continue to shave
Maybe
almost
longer.
daily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
for
just
guys,
for
you
hairy
might want to
dudes,
start
yeah.
that way earlier.
Oh, and it's difficult too because you have to shave everything,
Yeah.
everything from head to toe, because otherwise it'll glisten on the lights and it takes away from your definition, and it just you're not presenting your best self then.
Yeah. I was talking to one of the ladies who owns one of them. Her name's Corey. And she was saying that one of the guys she tanned a little while ago showed up for tanning. He hadn't shaved yet.
Oh my goodness.
So she sent him out, you got to shave.
Yeah.
He comes back absolutely covered in blood. Because she's never shaved before. So he's just got cuts everywhere.
Oh my goodness, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
What a rough
And that's why you
story.
need multiple days in order to get everywhere and to properly shave yourself and to make sure that you're not missing patches. Even waxing, stuff like that. But I mean, if you've never waxed before, don't do that right before a
No.
show.
Yeah, because
You
it
don't know
can
how your
you
skin's
can
gonna
erupt
react.
in like little pustules, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly.
Razor rash is more or
Yep.
less what it is.
Same with Nair. People
Yeah.
will use Nair on parts of the body that it should not be used on.
Right.
And they will get hives.
A reaction. Yeah, right.
And they will have bumps all over their skin,
Yeah.
or just people that don't have a good reaction to it. So you really want to take all these things into consideration well ahead of time and
Yeah.
give yourself time to
Isn't
try them
that
out.
funny, right? Like you think, I'm a bodybuilder or whatever, so the most important thing is I have to do bench press every day, or like squats every day, or
Yeah.
deadlift, and then you get to the show and it's like the biggest mistake you made was shaving wrong.
Yeah.
That's weird, hey?
Or putting on deodorant, and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden you've got green armpits. Or
Is that what happens?
so if people have moisturizer on, or
Yeah.
the pH of their skin is out of balance, it will cause you to turn green.
Get out. Is
So
that
that's
right?
why we tell people
Wow.
to use a specific type of exfoliant that balances your pH, because this can
I
happen.
never
not
thought of that.
I know. So it's
Wow.
not only for like the bodybuilding spray tans, but it's
Yeah.
even spray tans that you go in just to like a regular salon to get done.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Boy, I would have never thought that. I just
Yeah.
thought, well, you don't want to have a spot that maybe has something on it that's going to come off and take it. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's
No,
what I
it can
thought.
change the color of the tan.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that. That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
That's why they say no oils, no lotions, no nothing like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Huge
Well, listen, we're going to run out of time before we run out of stuff to talk about. So if you had to kind of capture something just regarding, we're talking a lot about shows because we're kind of both competitive that way. And like, you have a woman who comes to you and she's going to compete because she really wants to. What are you going to talk to her about? Like, what's that? I'm your athlete. What are you
So
gonna
my very
talk to
first
me
thing
about?
is, why do you want to compete? What is your reason for going into this? Do you want to get in shape? Because if so, this is not what I would recommend to get into shape, because you will just hate your body after this, and you will have body dysmorphia for the rest of your life. Are you doing this because you just want Instagram photos and you just want clout? Because again, you're not really going to stick to it if this is your only goal. After you've kind of figured out what is your why and making sure that you're doing this for the right reasons and for yourself, I would say, which federation do you want to go into? You know, you can do WBFF, where it's really focused around the beauty aspect of it, as well as the fitness. You can do natural federations, where it's a lot of first-time competitors, I find, in those categories. Or something like the CPA Federation, where you could potentially go on to get your pro card. And then once you've kind of made that decision, it's, okay, well, do your research on that. Figure out the posing, figure out the criteria, figure out who in your area are coaches that coach people into the show, what goes into it. Go see a show. If you've never even seen a bodybuilding show, go see what it's about. You know, I saw 2 or 3 shows before I was like, okay, I need to do this. I need to get on stage, you know, and then I fell in love with it. So really find out why you want to do it, and really just get to know everything that you can about it. Do your research. And if you are not somebody who's already lifting, don't set a show and date, you know?
Bad idea.
No, build your foundation first. Really learn about nutrition, learn about how to fuel your body properly, learn different exercises, build up those areas of your physique that you need to. And then once you've done all of that back end stuff, then maybe choose a show. Find a coach. Get your coach to do a full off season with you, and then go into a prep and do it. Make sure that you're doing this from full spectrum. Or if you're not wanting to take this seriously, then I mean, like, you don't have to listen to all this, but people that want to go in there to actually win and to do well, these are kind of things that you want to have under your belt first before picking a show.
And I guess the other part of it, which you don't mention, is the cost. Like, it's not like it's just like, hey, I'm just going to go and put on a bikini.
Yes.
It's like, not that at all.
It's not the same that it used to be. When I first started competing, like a decade ago, it was way cheaper. You know, my coach was like $70 a month.
Wow.
And my bikini was like, I don't know, $300 maybe. Show registration was like $50.
Yeah.
Nowadays, coaches are like upwards of $350 a month.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of different supplements that you have to take. You know, like I can take almost $300 of supplements a month just between like protein powder and omegas and multivitamins and just like, you know, L-carnitine, just all of these things. Yeah. They add up and they do make a difference, especially when you are in the thick of contest prep. Right. And then, you know, everything else that comes on show day, like your suit, you know,
travel,
tanning, oh my goodness, travel, hotels, everything, show registration, like it's just.
Because I think you were doing some math on your show.
Yes,
I think you were at $4,000.
Yeah,
it's like,
I know.
And that doesn't count everything. There's no way it does, right?
No, it doesn't. That was just mostly like my flights and my hotel and my car rental and like little things like that.
And that's Harvey doing your makeup, probably.
No, all myself. See, that's one thing that I can say is I've been able to learn so much about the industry, and I like doing makeup as well. So being able to do it myself, I can save costs somewhere. But a lot of people like lifting and are not necessarily into the beauty aspect of it. So they do have to budget for those other areas as well. And I actually did my tan myself for the last 2
years. Did you really?
I did.
Wow.
I did.
How'd you do that?
Pro tan.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
So it's so funny because I did.
So like
I used
a roller?
Kind of. Harvey does my tan.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's really good at it.
Wow.
He's very good at it. Yeah. So we basically just buy like the containers of it. And that's the thing too. If you're wanting to do it on a budget, I'm not saying that it's impossible to compete.
Yeah.
So you can cut costs in certain areas. And that's kind of why I was just like, oh, I trust Pro Tan. I used it for my first show. I might as well use it next to. I won't when I'm in Pittsburgh. I'll definitely get sprayed by somebody else there. But yeah, like there are ways to cut costs. So it was basically just like a container that we dumped in and layered it on myself and showered, and then you do more coats of it the next day. And
that's impressive.
It's honestly not as scary as people make it seem. Like it's pretty easy. I mean, I worked in tanning for so long, it just made sense for me. And if somebody messed up my tan, I would have been livid because of how much I know tanning and I know the product. I was like, if I mess it up myself, I'm not going to be as bad. But like if somebody messes up my tan, oof.
Oh, yeah.
After a full year of training for this one day, I would have been livid. So.
But I think if someone was brand new, I don't think I would recommend you try it on the day before your show.
No, definitely not. These are just things
really
that
bad.
I did. Yeah, exactly. And that's why they have professional tanners that to walk you through all this and to hold your hand and to make it
I think
easy.
what's cool is that, you know, when in just talking to you, what's neat is that you have a real passion for the competitive side, but then you have a real strong knowledge and frankly a passion for the lifestyle side, where it's not the show has a reason. Yeah. And people have different ones, but you're passionate about being healthy and being in the right spot, not just I got to win at any cost.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely a lifestyle, and I think it's given me so many more tools in my life than I ever could have expected. Like for me, it's just taught me so much dedication, so much organization skills, and a way to view my body in a way that I love it and I want to treat it kindly, and I want to do things to make sure that I am as healthy for as long as I can be, and to just really embrace and live this lifestyle. And it's just, it's great. And that's kind of, you know, little bits of this I want to be able to pass on to my lifestyle clients because, you know, what I do is unsustainable, but there are bits of it that can be translated into your everyday life.
Right. You know, and as you get older, one day you're going to be as old as me. It's
Tomorrow's
expensive.
my 30th, so.
Is it really?
It
Oh, happy
is.
birthday. That's so awesome.
I'm already feeling old, I know.
I don't even remember being that age.
Too long ago.
It was a long time ago. But, you know, as you get older, like, there's a cost to not being in good shape and not exercising and then eating poorly and having... You know, like you think to go from where you're at to my age, and like you're talking about 25 years actually of bad habit possibly that some people apply. And like I hurt more now than I hurt, you know, 20 years ago, but I can't even imagine what it would be like if I ate poorly every day and never exercised. And it's like, and you can't get to say 50 or 60 years old and just say, I'm just going to completely turn that around and I'm going to be better next year.
No, it doesn't happen.
Not even close.
And that's why cardio is a good thing to keep in year round for like the health benefit of that and to make sure that your cardiovascular system is really good. So is that something that you keep in year round as well?
I have, you know, I don't do tons of cardio as like in jumping on a treadmill all the time, but you know, I do hiking and I do, you know, a lot of walking and walk a dog or something like that. And then when I'm at the gym, I will do lunges and then I'll do stuff that is cardiovascular related, but I don't really have like a strong regimen of, I got to do 20 minutes of cardio every day and I probably should actually, to be honest, so it'll probably be better.
If you're getting out for walks and stuff like that, I mean, that's all kind of the same as long as you're keeping your body physically active.
I can feel it though when I don't have a regular, you know, people are into counting steps now, which is crazy. Like it's such a big deal suddenly. And I can see where that would actually be valuable to manage your step count on a daily basis. Definitely. There'd be some value there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I would definitely, I have put people on step counts where it doesn't make sense. Like if it's a mom who has kids, you know, they're running around, they're doing a lot of stuff with their kids on a daily basis. They don't also need to be jumping on a treadmill, but just to make sure that on the days when maybe the kids are in school, you know, keep up with that activity and make sure that you are going for walks and you are doing other things. So
that's very valuable. So
well,
listen, we're at the end. You got to get going home and I got to go home. So, but amazing, and happy birthday. This is so awesome.
Thanks.
I didn't realize you were here. I should have brought cake.
Oh, I couldn't have eaten it anyways. I'm on prep now.
It could have been like a protein powder.
So something crappy.
That's right.
Not nearly as delicious.
Yeah. Well, good luck in your shows.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank
if
you
we
for
don't
having
catch
me.
you, we'll talk to you before then.
We'll talk.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you. It's going to be great.
Did you have any shows? I don't even think I asked you. Do you have anything lined up for this year?
No, not right now.
But
Maybe.
You might get the itch later on once you start seeing people.
Well, you know, I'm emceeing the next Alberta Open shows, which will be fun.
May 21st.
And, May 21st for CPA, Calgary.
Yeah, great casino.
Yeah, should be really great.
Yeah.
And then actually, it's not at the casino.
What?
It's up
Where
at
is
the. It's at a hotel by the airport. I think. I'm pretty sure actually.
Oh, I didn't know
the casino is a great venue.
I loved it.
I think it's up by the airport.
I love that venue.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. My daughter is, she's going to compete.
Is she?
And then I have a few
Is she doing Alberta Open?
I think she's going to, is that July?
May.
No. She's not doing that one.
No.
There's one in July, I think she's
TNT.
targeting.
In
That's
Edmonton?
probably it, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, probably, you know, if I do compete, it'll be next year probably.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this, putting on some weight, lifting some heavy weights, and not worrying about getting hurt while I'm doing it. That's a nice sort of spot to be in.
Nice. Well, good luck to her then. If she's going to be competing soon, that's so exciting. Yeah.
So she'll want to dance around with you a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Be fun. So, well, thanks for having me or coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Amber, so.
Also, my Instagram is Amber Cress.
Yep, and I'll put that in the
there.
notes, so it'll be there. So
yeah.
Everything.
And Fit by Amber Cress is my coaching page. So if anybody's interested, check me out.
Yeah, and so you're on Instagram, and then are you also on? Do you have a website? Do you have other stuff?
No, just Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll put that. We'll plug that into the stuff at the bottom so people can reach you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been so great. So happy to chat about something that I love
You know
so
what would
much.
be fun? We should get you in. Sorry. Like we're at the end and we're still talking.
I know. It's just
we should get you in as you get closer to, like, before you fly away.
Yeah.
You know, like
Let's
as you're kind of emaciated and feeling horrible.
I won't be this energetic. I won't be talking with my hands. I'll just be like, ugh.
Why are we still here?
Yeah, let's do it. I love that
That'd be
idea.
fun, actually. And we'll put the side-by-side picture. And
Totally.
just say, this is Amber here and here.
Healthy versus skeleton.
That'll
love
be fun.
it.
So.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming. We'll see you again soon.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Take care. Hey, this is Craig. Thanks for watching this episode. I have a number of really interesting people that I'm going to be speaking with over the next while. Don't miss an episode. They're going to be great. If you have a chance, jump over to the partnerstaffing.com website. All the links to the videos that we're doing that are employment related will be there. Anyways, hit subscribe. Special thanks to our editor, Chris Filosovich. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Craig out.